I want to apologize from the beginning of this video for the light because I know it's going to be changeable, but that is just the way it's going to be. Today we're going to do a book review of Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I had heard so much about this book, both on BookTube but then also just generally online. For example, it won like the Goodreads Choice Award in 2019. I decided to check it out, right? I wanted to know what it was all about. I wanted to know why people were buzzed off this book, and let's just say that I didn't enjoy it. So Red, White and Royal Blue is a gay romance book, which I loved the sound of. But not only is it a gay romance, it is a gay romance between the first son of the President of the United States of America, what a mouthful, and the Prince of England, well, one of the princes of England, but actually his title is the Prince of Wales. Their names are Alex and Henry. Let's guess which one's which. Obviously Henry is the prince. So this is basically a story about these two boys falling in love. So I'm going to divide these thoughts into kind of two categories. The first one is going to be the characters, and the second part is going to be looking at the kind of political aspects that were brought up in this book. So let's go. The first part is characters, characterization. So as I said, we've got Alex and Henry as our main characters. My main issue with these two characters was that they were extremely one-dimensional. So we have Alex, who is, as I say, the first son of the first female president of the United States of America. He is half Mexican, his dad is Mexican, and throughout the course of the book he discovers that he's bisexual. Then we have Henry, who, as I say, is a Prince of England, and he is gay, but he can't be openly gay because he's part of the monarchy and it frowns upon his homosexuality. The labels that I just gave to both of those boys are the most interesting things about them. It's like Casey McQuiston decided that by giving both of these characters these marginalized identities, she was relinquished of the responsibility to actually build up both of their personalities. What little personality Alex does have is, in my opinion, not very nice. At the beginning of the book, he seems to hate Henry for absolutely no reason. And I know that with that, the author was trying to, bring in the trope of enemies to lovers, where the characters start off hating each other, but then they slowly get to know each other and end up falling in love. But in order for that to actually work, you need to feel at the start that there's reason for them being enemies. But I didn't feel that at all, because I felt that the reasons Alex had for hating Henry were inconsequential. I think he just found him to be rude, and on that basis had extreme hatred for him. I suppose the other main facet of his personality that we're given is his penchant for cursing. The boy loves to curse. Like, honestly, every second sentence had just like a random curse word thrown in. The amount of cursing that he does just grew really tiresome. And that's coming from a person who does curse. Like, I throw in random curse words into sentences, but I try not to make it like every sentence I say. And that's what was happening with Alex. So I felt like the characterization of Alex was very weak. Moving on to Henry. Henry I had even more problems with, honestly, because Henry was honestly just like a cardboard cutout of every romantic interest ever. Like, the way he was described as like really tall with the kind of like floppy hair and what I think were blue eyes, probably blue eyes. It was just like, so generic. And then on top of that, he was just like made up of every single British stereotype that this like obviously American author knew. It was so like obnoxiously but also like boringly English. So I don't even know who he was. I know that he liked Star Wars and Great British Bake Off, and like, I get you on the Great British Bake Off part. That is a fantastic show, but it is not a personality. So again, I struggled with the characterization of Henry. So overall, I felt that both Alex and Henry were very flatly drawn. As a result of that then, their relationship was kind of whatever to me. Like, I was bored by it. To be fair to the relationship, I actually thought it was quite refreshing to read certain aspects of it. And the main aspect I liked was that there was very open and honest communication between both Alex and Henry for most of the book. And it was, I think, quite refreshing to read a romance book that didn't fall back on the trope of the characters, you know, having a miscommunication or not communicating properly, and then that's the source of their conflict. But I found that because Casey McQuiston made these two characters, you know, have this really kind of like open and understanding relationship with each other, she tried to kind of combat the cheesiness that arose out of that situation by making their like interactions with each other weirdly insulting. They'd be like doing something sexual or just like talking to each other in a loving way, and they would call each other like a bastard, or they would say I hate you, or they would say like I want to kill you. And I think the intention there was to like, you know, make it come across as like cute and relatable and fun, but in reality it just came across as like kind of rude and unnecessary. So that's another aspect of the relationship that I couldn't quite like get down with, you know? Aside from that, I will say that it was genuinely lovely to read an LGBTQ plus focused romance. I haven't read enough of them, and it was really good to read that. So none of what I'm saying about these characters and about the relationship takes away from the fact that it was great to read this representation. I just wish the characters had been done better so that I could enjoy that representation better. Now let's move on to the political aspects of this book, shall we? The book is set during an election cycle, so Alex's mother is actually running for re-election. So Casey McQuiston basically sets up this political backdrop and then uses this setup to write what were, in my opinion, very, very simplistic platitudes about how wonderful every Democrat in America is, and how utterly terrible every Republican is. So she really buys into this like dichotomous viewpoint that people are either only good or bad, and that's reflected in their political stance. Reading it, I was almost like, wow, you'd think a Democrat has never made a mistake or like done anything that could be labelled questionable or bad in their lives. On top of that, and kind of related to that, McQuiston basically made it her mission throughout this book to show just how much of a woke queen she is, as Twitter would say. But for me, this made her narrative extremely presumptuous and also condescending. It's like she wasn't even bothered to consider that a lot of the social issues that we have today, or that America has today, are social issues precisely because they are complicated and they are divisive. However, she just assumes that every single one of her readers will be of the exact same political persuasion as herself, and then she proceeds to mention said social issues with abandon, failing to actually engage meaningfully with any of them. So the social issues I'm talking about here are wide and varied. For example, she makes one of her characters bisexual, she makes another of her characters gay, she makes another of her characters pansexual, she makes another of her characters transgender, she makes a lot of her characters immigrants, thereby bringing up racism. She also condemns the kind of colonial history of the British monarchy, thereby again condemning racism. But while she gives all of her characters these kind of diverse and interesting backgrounds, she only represents one attitude to all of these huge social issues. And, you know, maybe that shouldn't have been a problem for me, because in general, I actually have the exact same perspectives as Casey McQuiston does, right? Like, I am also like leftist leaning, I am also a liberal, but even I found her attempts at trying to shoehorn all of these varied and complex issues into one book which was meant to just be about a gay romance, both lazy and unfocused. I am glad for her that she has a social conscience. That is amazing. But honestly, I found that her attempts to show how much she loves all of these people detracted from what should have been her main focus here, which was the gay romance. Not just randomly throwing in, oh, by the way, I also believe in this, and oh, by the way, I'm also like a huge advocate for this. Overall, guys, I gave this book 1 star on Goodreads. I initially thought that was kind of harsh and that it was just my immediate disappointment with the book, but even after a few days, I feel like 1 star is how I feel about that book. And I don't really feel like I recommend it, other than I recommend it simply for the fact that it is a gay romance, and that is fantastic. I am now going to stop rambling and I'm going to leave you all in peace. I feel good to get it off my chest. Now I can move on and film my July wrap up. Goodbye.